Hey everyone, I want to do a quick video on self-compassion and why self-compassion is so important in compassion work. May seem obvious, but you can't fill anyone's cup if your well is drained. People say that a lot. People say stuff like, oh, you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself before everyone else. And I think that's very helpful, and it's definitely helped me in my life with my compassion work. I also feel like so many of us, we were never taught how to fill the well. So telling us, oh, you got to fill your own well. It's nice. Okay, yeah, I know this well should be full, but I think some of us either don't know how to fill the well or, which is a thing I've definitely been through in my life, I didn't know the well was empty. This is just how I've always felt. I've always felt like this. I've always been very, very compassionate and had a lot of empathy for others, and then felt very drained by their emotions and showing up for them. And I thought that that was kind of how it was supposed to be, because I was taught as a younger person that if I cared about something, I had to suffer for it. And I think working hard and suffering are not the same thing. If I care about something, I work hard for it, and hard work doesn't always look the same. Hard work can look very quiet and slow, and hard work can look explosive and fast, and it's all things in between. Hard work is just an internal definition of how I work on things. Do I really put the intention behind it, and do I work on the right things, or do I sort of pretend to work hard on things that are actually distractions from the hard work I know I need to do, which is an internal question. I can make the same choice on a Monday and a Wednesday, and on Monday it's a great choice for me, and on Wednesday it's avoidance. The only person that can tell me that is me. And that's kind of where self-compassion comes in for me. I didn't know I was going to go on a journey of self-compassion when I went on a journey of learning how to have healthy boundaries. That's kind of the first big journey I took into the sort of interior of my mind and my spirit, was trying to learn how to have healthy boundaries. And what I learned in there was also compassion. It was self-compassion and self-care. Because in my childhood, I was not taught to have healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries would have really thrown a wrench in my family dynamics as a child. It was only as an adult, when I moved away and got my own resources, that I learned how to have healthy boundaries. And that was a lot of self-compassion and a lot of listening to myself. And if I didn't take that journey, if I didn't know that those things are intertwined, if I didn't know how I practice self-compassion, how I am compassionate, if I had never been on both sides of that, giving myself compassion and receiving compassion from myself, before that journey, I knew a lot about compassion. I was a very compassionate person. I was good at it. I had good language and I had good training, and people considered me to be compassionate. Also, I didn't know how I practice compassion. That was a thing that I did. It was a task that I completed. It was not knowledge that I had of myself or of my inner journey or inner expression. And that to me is the difference between knowing how to be self-compassionate and having taken that journey, and knowing how to be compassionate for others and having not taken that journey. Today, I do still experience compassion fatigue. Also, I can see it coming faster. I can prioritize before I'm exhausted. I can also leave the table long before I'm exhausted, when I'm just tired, so that it's easier for me to recover and I have a shorter recovery time. Also, because for me, compassion and boundaries are so tied together, I have a lot healthier boundaries today than I did before when I was younger, and they're together. When I draw a boundary against something, when I say, oh, hey, this isn't okay with me, or that's not something I do, or this isn't an appropriate whatever, or I'm not going to do that, I can say that with compassion. I don't have to shame someone for wanting something from me that I'm not going to give them. And I don't have to give it to them. Those are two realities that were really hard to hold for me before I knew how to do self-compassion, because I had not had an experience of being treated with a pure, true compassion. Other people obviously had been compassionate towards me in my life, and I had never done that for myself. So being in that experience, having taken that journey, that's why I feel like it's so important to take that journey for yourself before you'll take it with other people. Because, not just because you need to have the resources yourself to do that, even though that's important, but because you also need to have known what that feels like. What does it feel like to have someone who loves you be compassionate towards you? What does it feel like to have someone draw a boundary around something, but with compassion? Those are unique feelings that I think we can only teach ourselves. We can only show ourselves what it feels like to be loved by us. And that's going to be really important when we have a sort of like loving journey in the world, when we are trying to give that loving kindness, compassion, empathy to others. So that's my big thought for today. Tell me about compassion down below. I know a lot of us are experiencing compassion fatigue right now. That is 100% real. What are you doing to fill the well? When did you learn about the well and whether or not it had ever been filled before? Let's talk about compassion and techniques for compassion, and how are we communicating our levels of compassion fatigue with our teams, with our fellows? Are we communicating at all? That's a very important question. I think, you know, as a team, if you're a part of a team, it's time to work together. You don't have to do things alone. You don't have to fill your well alone. So, very important to remember. Thanks for watching this video. See you tomorrow.